All right, back with another mock draft here. This is going to be what I think will happen. I'm going to get a lot wrong, obviously. I mean, this is a complete projection, and I am not an insider. I do not have inside information. What I know is what either you know or is available to you as well. I scouted the prospects pretty well. I know the teams pretty well, as much as someone can know all 32 different teams. But of course, some things are going to slip through the cracks. But that's part of the fun of it too. See what you get right and see what you get wrong. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. Let's do the mock draft of my prediction as just a guy, not an insider. I've got to pick all the teams, just one round, and let's get into it. So right off the bat, what are we doing here? So we have, right here. Well, first, we're not going to make a trade. First overall, Aiden Hutchinson. Easy. I think they're going to stick with Aiden Hutchinson. I do. I know that there's been some talk about like Trayvon Walker, number one. I just think that's, there was some talk about should the Jaguars pick Zach Wilson last year, and then it was like, no, they're going to pick Trevor Lawrence. I think that's what's going to happen here. It's like, no, Aiden Hutchinson's the clear choice. Get him. Number two is where things get interesting. I do think that there's I think there's legit several options. I don't think the Malik Willis thing won't happen. I don't think Kyle Hamilton won't happen, although they did just get a safety, so I'm not sure if they'll go back. And I think they're good on safety, quite frankly, so I think they're fine there. So I don't think Kyle Hamilton, but it's possible. I think that, I definitely think that there's corners available. Stingley and Gardner are certainly options. I do think that Trayvon Walker is a legitimate possibility here, but I don't think they're going to overthink it. Kayvon Thibodeau, make the easy selection. I think the number 1 and 2 is easy. Everyone won't think that way, but I do. Number 3. So this is where things get very interesting. The Texans, again, the needs always cracks me up every position. There's 2 places they could go. I think that they might go Kyle Hamilton. I really hate that fit for them. I think that Hamilton's not like a cover 2 safety, which is what Lovie Smith likes to run. That's not a good fit to me at all. I don't think they go Kyle Hamilton. Again, it's weird because I'm not a huge fan of Kyle Hamilton in general. So maybe that's coloring my opinion on him. It's either going to be Hamilton or it's going to be Walker, who I'm not a big fan of either of those guys, quite frankly. I think they go Trayvon Walker here. So Trayvon Walker off the board. The Jets here at number 4. They could go, again, people like Kyle Hamilton in that scheme. I don't. I really have a fear that they're going to draft him and have him be a free safety. I'm going to trust that Robert Saleh is smart enough to realize, this isn't the best fit for our scheme. It's kind of Jamal Adams in Seattle type of situation. Let's not make that happen. Let's instead go with Sauce Gardner here, who's the best, in my opinion, the best corner in this class, although Stingley's very good as well. You could argue that as well. I think that's a certain option. And man, it would be kind of hilarious if Kyle Hamilton went to the Giants, because they do not need a safety by any means. But I kind of think they're just going to go with like a swing at, they might just go best player available. They have several weaknesses, and maybe that's what they're going to do. I did not expect this Hamilton slide a little bit, and one of these guys is going to slide, right? I mean, one of the Kyle Hamilton, Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, Ahmad Gardner, one of those guys is going to drop. That's what you're seeing here, because we have, seems like a lot of guys who are top 5 talents. They're not all going to go here. I think Evan Neal goes 5th overall to the Giants. I think that they need offensive line help. I think they get Evan Neal, and especially with the Panthers picking behind them, who are also a team that could use offensive line help, getting your choice of tackle might make more sense here. Now, the Panthers, I think they're going quarterback. They need a quarterback. Matt Rule is fired if they don't get a quarterback. Like, that's just what's going to happen. There's several guys available. I think the guy they're going to go with, because they have to be good now or people are getting fired, is going to be Kenny Pickett, which I don't think is the correct call. It's not what I would make, but I think that's what's going to happen. I wouldn't hate them drafting a quarterback. I had them drafting a quarterback in my what I would do mock draft, but I had Malik Willis because I think he has a higher ceiling. But I think they're going to go Kenny Pickett, the higher floor guy, and guy who probably most pro ready day one, even though I worry about his ceiling. That's kind of how I view that. So number 7, the Giants. So I think this is probably where that slide ends. So Kyle Hamilton fans, if you're a Giants fan and a Kyle Hamilton fan, you're probably very happy. Again, it's not the move I would make, I don't think. But again, you're getting someone who many feel as though is a very star player, a very star player. You're getting someone who many people think is a very good player and a star player. So there's that, which is, there's value there. With number 8, the Atlanta Falcons, I kind of think Atlanta goes quarterback, right? I mean, you have Marcus Mariota, so you don't have a quarterback, right? I mean, he's not a bad flyer option, but I think that part of them going into the season with just Marcus Mariota is they want another guy, and probably the way you're going to do that is through the draft, I would think. I think they're going to draft Bailey Zappi. No, I'm kidding. Not going to draft Bailey Zappi. I don't really know exactly who's going to happen. I guess I think Desmond Ridder is probably the closest to like a Ryan Tannehill, maybe Matt Corral. I wouldn't be shocked to see either one of those go. I think, does Malik Willis fall here? I don't think that's crazy, even though I wouldn't do that. Give me Desmond Ridder. That's what Atlanta is going to do. I kind of see that fit, and I think I've heard some rumblings of that, even though it's certainly not the move that I would make. The Seahawks also could use a quarterback. And if it's me, I just draft Malik Willis. I run that card in. But again, I just don't know if that's the way that they view this stuff. I think what they're going to do is instead they're going to go out and draft. I think they want to tackle. Charles Cross is still available. We have a decent, a lot of these offensive linemen are falling, which again, I think this is possible. I think this really could happen. I think if teams do go after those quarterbacks early on, and the stars get drafted early, it's not crazy to think that these offensive linemen could fall a little bit, which is good news for a couple of these teams coming up that end up getting them, one of them being Seattle. Number 10, I think that this has been mocked a bit, and I think it makes sense. Drake London going number 10 to the New York Jets. Again, for me personally, he's not my number 1 wide receiver. I have Williams ahead, but I have him number 2. He's really good. He can win on the outside and can win those contested catches for Zach Wilson. So for the Jets, I think the Jets, this is the offseason you want to have. This is the draft you want to have. You want to get a wide receiver 10 and a corner 4. Now, it could be Gardner. It could be Stingley. You're okay there. And for London, it could be London. It could be Jameson Williams. You're okay there. But you want to get one of those top guys at those positions with those 2 picks. And that's what they did in my draft. So that's potentially good news. Number 11. So there's 2 ways I could go about this. I could just say, give me the best player available, or I could go back to that quarterback which again, I know people are going to say, this team isn't going to go quarterback. They're going to wait a year. Teams are desperate for quarterbacks. Teams are, and more so, as we're realizing that, quarterbacks matter more and more. But I actually don't think that that's what Ron Rivera is going to do. I think Ron Rivera might go Devin Lloyd here. Again, with that scheme that he likes to play, having a good elite linebacker that can do all phases of the game is really valuable. And I think Devin Lloyd is that guy. So give me Devin Lloyd at number 11. And this would now mean that number 12, the Vikings would run into pick of Akeem Ekwonu, who falls all the way to them. They're very happy about that. Let me just go through here and make sure I haven't forgotten anybody as I do this. This, I think, is something that I could see happening. Again, these drafts get weird, right? Where I say, okay, well, I'm trying to do my prediction of each pick and try to get it as perfect as possible. But obviously, when one pick gets slightly different, it creates a butterfly effect to where Akeem Ekwonu and Derek Stingley are both still available at number 12. I know that Lovie Smith has talked about wanting a corner. You have Trayvon Walker already, so they went defensive line earlier. I think Stingley gets picked here, which the Texans fans would be really thrilled about getting him at 13. Although, if you're a fan of me, you're probably not as thrilled about the Trayvon Walker pick at 3. But again, going with what we have here, number 14. I think the 2 biggest options for the Ravens would be either Trent McDuffie or Jameson Williams, or I guess Garrett Wilson as well. One of those 2, getting a star receiver or getting the corner. I just feel like I've heard too much about them wanting corner. I think corners go back to back here. Trent McDuffie going to Baltimore. I've heard too much smoke there. I'm going to buy into it. And for the Eagles, listen, I think the Eagles want more wide receiver help. You have these 2 mid-round picks where their wide receivers are. I think they're going to go wide receiver. The question is, do you do it this pick or next pick? I think they do it this pick because the Saints pick right after them, and even the Chargers pick right after them. So I think they go Garrett Wilson here. And then I think the Saints kind of view the same logic of listen, a receiver. Well, the Saints are tough, right? Because you want Jameson Williams and you want Bernard Raymond. That would be an ideal situation with the number 8, 16, and 19 pick. But if you if you don't get one of them, then I guess you got to figure something else out. I guess Bernard Rainman would probably be the guy because if you don't get him now, there's other receiver. You can get Chris Olave, right? Who's not too far down. So you have other options. Whereas if you get Jamison Williams, what's your next tackle option? They want to tackle. They value line play. So I'm going to have Rainman go. Here, the Chargers. So there's the two guys that I've seen getting mocked to him, the Chargers the most, and they both make a ton of sense to me. Jamison Williams and Jordan Davis. I get Jordan Davis because they could use like a good run stuffing defensive lineman. They did kind of address it through free agency, but they could use more help there. I mean, the flip side is like, to me, the idea of the Chargers getting Jamison Williams is just too exciting for me. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Jamison Williams with Justin Herbert throwing the football and a good offensive line, a quality offensive line. That's just way more exciting to me than a team that is a little bit more complete and stops the run better, which still matters, but I'd rather have the excitement. Give me Jamison Williams here at number 17. Maybe I'm putting in a little bit of what I would do into that, but still, I like that. And then for number 18, the Eagles are in an interesting situation where they already went wide receiver. And now what do you do here? And maybe this is an argument for not going wide receiver on that first pick and just let the wide receiver go later. But at the same time, I mean, they weren't going to get Bernard Raymond. So I think probably a better choice, actually. Get your choice of the wide receiver there. So what else do you do if you are Philadelphia? You could double down on receiver, get Chris Olave. That's an option. Another thing you could do is just try to get like the best player available, like a Devontae Wyatt or George Karlaftis, who I like Karlaftis a lot, and they clearly value edge rushers and want a lot of them, or defensive linemen in general, which is why Wyatt makes sense. But I'll go Nakobe Dean, who they could use a linebacker, and I like him, so I'll have him go there. And then for the Saints, who again picked a tackle earlier, I think they now go Chris Olave here to get a wide receiver and kind of complete what they needed. They needed a receiver, they needed a tackle. Well, now they got both of them. As for the Steelers, I think there's a real likelihood that they go quarterback here. Now, I've had Kenny Pickett I feel like that fits, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if that happens. But I think if Malik Willis is still on the board at 20, I think they draft Malik Willis. I just think that's like, it's an easy pick, and that would be a great pick if that happens. So Steelers fans, I think the Steelers get a quarterback in the first round. I do. I feel pretty good about that. 21, the New England Patriots, who are probably bummed that there was that wide receiver run a little bit. What do you do here? You could go with George Karlaftis, which I would love that pick. That might be the move, even though I think they have bigger needs with corner and with wide receiver. That's the dilemma, right? So George Karlaftis is ranked 10th, and I think that's fair. That's about where I have him on my board as well. Wide receiver, the next guy is Traelyn Burks, who I'm not a huge fan of, but a lot of people are. Sky Moore is another guy who I like more. But those are two sort of late first, early second kind of guys. So do you want to reach now with still pick 21? Andrew Booth's the other option. So to me, those are the two options. It's Andrew Booth or it's George Karlaftis. To me, I think I'd go Karlaftis and say, like, listen, let's just get the better player. And I think that's probably what Bill Belichick does. I think Belichick tends to not draft on need, and he trusts his ability to draft well later in rounds. He's going to get Karlaftis. Really, they're going to trade down. That's what the Patriots always do. But if they keep the pick, that's probably what happens. Now, for the Packers, this is an interesting situation for them because they could use an offensive line, and it probably makes more sense to go O-line here. Like I said, could be a bit of a reach for wide receiver, which, of course, we know they need a wide receiver. Give me Trevor Penning here, get an offensive lineman, complete that offensive line. And again, you have Ellington Jenkins who can play anywhere. So you just need a guard or a tackle, whatever, and they get tackle here. 23, I think that we have Tyler Linderbaum going. Just an awesome player. Don't knock against him as he's the center. I think Cardinals fans will be very happy about that one. The Dallas Cowboys going with, there's several ways they could go with this. They could use a guard to replace Connor Williams. I think I've seen that getting mocked a decent amount. I think that there's some logic there. Or they could use, again, according to PFF, their needs are offensive line, defensive line, and linebacker. They're in kind of a weird spot. I don't know what you do here. Maybe just draft best player available. Is that that kind of makes sense, right? Get like a Devontae Wyatt and just get like a player who has a chance to be a star. Yeah, I'll do that. Let's get Devontae Wyatt just because he's the best player available. And that's what the Cowboys tend to do is they historically just go for best player available, not for need too much. And, everyone could use a defensive lineman. So 25, I think, again, the Bills are always the most fun pick for me because I do think that for the Buffalo Bills, they're a team that, like, they don't have too many needs. Just draft who you want to draft. And so I think if Jordan Davis is still on the board here, they draft Jordan Davis. I do have Davis slipping a little bit, which, I think there's a chance he goes with the Chargers. But if he doesn't, there isn't really a great fit for him. Maybe the Patriots snag him. That's another option, but I like Karlaftis better. But maybe Karlaftis is gone before then too. So that's fascinating as well. But I think that Davis with the Bills would just make a ton of sense. If he is only just a role player who's really good at that role, well, that's fine. Like, that's all you need him to do. And then there's the potential for so much more. So I would really like that fit. For the Titans, I think the Titans go David Ojabo here. Listen, they need edge help. They do. That's something that they need. So go with the best edge rusher available. There's other positions of need, but I feel like it'd be reaches a little bit at any of those positions. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're another team that's in an interesting situation. They could use an offensive lineman. They need a guard to replace, is it replacing Kappa or is it replacing Marpet? Because they lost two guards, got one back with Shaq Mason, but now they need another one to replace the other guy. And there is a guard available, right? I mean, the guy is Zion Johnson. It's not the sexiest pick, but he should be a solid starting guard. They need a guard. Yeah, simple. Make that pick. Number 28. So the Packers, who have a tackle now, they need a wide receiver help. There are wide receivers available. I think Traelyn Burks goes here, who, again, not crazy about. I feel like he doesn't get separation enough, kind of a contested catch guy a little bit. But the one interesting thing about him is he's a fast, big wide receiver. Again, and he's fast for his size. He might not be fast, like, period, but, for someone his size, being able to run a 4.55 40, that's pretty good. So that, I think, is interesting to Green Bay. Should fit the scheme well. I worry about his ceiling, I guess, is what I would say. But it should be all right. Now for the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they go Jermaine Johnson with one of their picks. They could use an edge rusher for sure. They need pass rush. Yes, they put resources into it, but if it's not good, you have to put more resources into it. That's how it works. And then they could either go receiver or they could go corner here. I think they try to improve the defense. I think they go Andrew Booth. They don't get a wide receiver here, but you can get one later on. You can, and yet they have plenty of picks. You'd rather take more flyers than you would just have one solid player. Now the Cincinnati Bengals, who their only real need is they need one offensive lineman. They've got pretty much the rest filled. So that's interesting to me. Don't think they go Sam Howell here as who's the number one guy. The other option would be Kair Elam, because the way I view it is, so the interior offensive lineman, Kenyon Green, I'm just not a huge fan of personally. And, 42 here, that's a real option. Getting him at 31, I can see the logic behind that. But the other option would be get a corner so that way you don't have to rely on Eli Apple replicating what he did last year. To me, that's what I do. So I'll say that's what they do as well, getting a good corner who I like. Now, 32, the Detroit Lions are going to end this draft by selecting a quarterback, because I just think, I keep saying it, that 32 pick, someone's going to use it on a quarterback, whether it's the Lions or whether they trade it and get someone else. So maybe they'll get someone with number 2 overall pick and then get a quarterback. I think Sam Howell goes here. That is my draft. So, I had 4 quarterbacks go round 1. Matt Corral was the only one who didn't. And again, it's less about, like, I could totally see Matt Corral be, quite frankly, he could go number 6. Like, I don't think that's crazy at all. I could see Atlanta picking him at number 8. But I just think teams are going to say, like, you know what? I feel like the NFL, the history of the NFL shows us that teams draft quarterbacks and teams don't mess around with quarterbacks. They'll say, I like a quarterback, I'm just going to take him. That typically is the case. Yeah, sure, the Patriots waited on Mac Jones, but that's rare. If you like a quarterback enough to draft him with an early second-round pick, you'll just draft him with your first-round pick. That's typically how teams operate. So that's what I would do mock draft. In hindsight, again, it's one of those things where you could go back and say, actually, let me have a different guy go here, and then that would make the whole mock draft look better. But that's not how the draft works, right? These things happen. I think that, I have Hamilton falling. Someone's going to fall. Someone in that top, really, I guess four, you want to say, like Hutchinson, Thibodeau, Walker, and Hamilton. One of those guys is going to fall. I think Stingley fell a lot too, and Akeem Ekwanyu fell a lot too. I think that guys could fall a decent amount in this draft, which would be fascinating to me. So those are interesting. I guess the wide receiver run kind of in that middle where it seems like all those middle teams want to go wide receiver. That's interesting. I also think the Steelers are in a good spot to get a quarterback and kind of maybe even do the Patriots model of waiting on a quarterback, or just like, hey, if the Steelers, if you go up to the Jets and say, we'll give you a second round pick, let us go up and just get a quarterback, or a third round pick or whatever, that would be interesting as well. Although maybe the Jets don't do it because they don't want to, get a worse receiver. But okay, then the Vikings, who they have an analytic minded general manager, maybe he's willing to, trade back, whatever. But yeah, interesting. Again, it's fun exercise to kind of just see where my head's at and see kind of where things could break down, what could happen. Again, it seems like either Jameson Williams goes number 17 or Jordan Davis goes 17, and whichever one, if Davis doesn't get selected there, I think he does fall a little bit. So, or someone trades up, because again, I didn't do trades here. I thought about doing trades, decided not to, I guess. But yeah, all right. Well, interesting stuff. Let me know what you thought of this mock draft in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.